Story Corner, presented by Jennifer. Warriors. Book 1, Into the Wild. Chapter 9, to the elephant for you, Greypaw whispered as Longtail strode away. She doesn't look very happy. Firepaw glanced over at the old she-cat. She was still lying beside High Rock. Greypaw was right. She was glaring at him. Well, here goes, he mewed. Wish me luck? You need the whole ShadowClan on your side for this one, answered Greypaw. Call out if you need a hand. If she looks like she's going to have you, I'll sneak up behind her and whack her on the head with a stiff rabbit. Firepaw purred with amusement and trotted off towards Yellowfang. His cheerfulness quickly evaporated as he neared the injured queen. The old cat was clearly in a terrible mood. She hissed a warning and showed her teeth. Stop right there, kitty pet. Firepaw sighed. It seemed he was in for a fight. He was still hungry and beginning to feel tired. He longed to curl up in his nest for an afternoon nap. The last thing he wanted was to argue with this pitiful clump of fur and teeth. You can call me what you like, he mewed wearily. I'm just following Blue Star's orders. You are kitty pet, though, aren't you? Yellowfang wheezed. She's tired, too, Firepaw thought. There was less fire in her voice, and although her spite was stronger than ever. I used to live with 2 legs when I was a kitten, Firepaw replied calmly. Your mother's a kitty pet? Your father's a kitty pet? Yes, they were. Firepaw looked down at the ground, feeling resentment burn inside him. It was bad enough that members of his own clan still viewed him as an outsider. He certainly didn't have to answer to this foul-tempered prisoner. Yellowfang seemed to take his silence as an invitation to go on. Kitty pet blood is not the same as warrior blood. Why don't you run along home to your 2 legs now instead of looking after me? It's humiliating being fussed over by a low-born cat like you. Firepaw's patience ran out. He snarled. You'd still feel humiliated if I were warrior-born. You'd feel ashamed whether I was a precious she-cat from your own clan or a wretched 2-leg that had picked you up off the ground. He lashed his tail from side to side. It's the fact that you need to rely on any cat that you find so humiliating. Yellowfang stared at him, her orange eyes very wide. Firepaw carried on fiercely. You're just going to have to get used to being cared for until you're well enough to look after yourself, you spiteful old bag of bones. He stopped as Yellowfang began to make a low, harsh, wheezing sound. Alarmed, Firepaw took a step towards her. Then the she-cat was trembling all over. Her eyes had narrowed into tiny slits. Was she having some kind of fit? "Look, I didn't mean," he began, before he suddenly realized she was laughing. She mewed, a purring rumble up from her deep inside her chest. Firepaw didn't know what to do. "You have spirit, kitty pet," Yellowfang croaked, stopping at last. "Now I'm tired and my leg hurts. I need sleep and something to put on this wound. Go and find that pretty little medicine cat of yours and ask her for some herbs. I think you'll find a goldenrod poultice would help. And while you're at it, I wouldn't mind a few poppy seeds to chew on. The pain is killing me." Stunned by her change of mood, Firepaw turned quickly and sprinted towards Spotted Leaf's den. He had never been in this particular part of the camp before. With his ears pricked, he padded through the cool green tunnel of ferns that led into a small grassy clearing. A tall rock stood at one side, split down the middle by a crack wide enough for a cat to make its den inside. Out of this opening trotted Spotted Leaf. As usual, she looked bright-eyed and friendly, her dapple coat gleaming with 100 shades of amber and brown. Firepaw shyly mewed a greeting and reeled off Yellowfang's list of herbs and seeds. "I've got most of those in my den," replied Spotted Leaf. "I'll fetch some marigold leaves, too. If she dresses her wound with that, it'll keep off any infection. Wait here." "Thanks," Firepaw mewed as the medicine cat disappeared back into her den. He strained his eyes, trying to catch a glimpse of her inside. But the den was too dark to see anything. He could only hear the sounds of rustling and smell the heavy scent of unfamiliar herbs. Spotted Leaf emerged from the gloom and dropped a bundle of folded in leaves by Firepaw's feet. "Tell Yellowfang to go easy on the poppy seeds. I don't want her deadening the pain entirely. A little pain can be useful, as it'll help me judge how well she's healing." Firepaw nodded and picked up the herbs with his teeth. "Thanks, Spotted Leaf." He mewed through a mouthful of leaves, then headed back through the fern tunnel into the main clearing. Tiger Claw was standing outside the warrior's den, watching him closely. As Firepaw trotted over to Yellowfang carrying the herbs, he could feel the amber-eyed stare burning the fur on the back of his neck. He turned his head and looked at Tiger Claw curiously. The warrior narrowed his eyes and looked away. Firepaw dropped the bundle beside Yellowfang. "Good," she mewed. "Now, before you leave me in peace, find me something to eat. I'm starving." The sun had risen 3 times since Yellowfang had entered the camp. Firepaw woke early and nudged Greypaw, who was still asleep beside him, his nose tucked under his thick tail. "Wake up," Firepaw mewed, or you'll be late for training." Greypaw lifted his head sleepily and growled in reluctant agreement. Firepaw prodded Ravenpaw. The black cat opened his eyes immediately and leapt to his feet. "What is it?" he mewed, looking around wildly. "Calm down, Ravenpaw. It's time for training soon." Firepaw soothed. Dustpaw and Sandpaw began to stir too, in their mossy nests on the far side of the den. Firepaw stood up and pushed his way out of the ferns. The morning was warm. Firepaw could see a deep blue sky through the leaves and branches that overhung the camp. Today, however, a heavy dew glistened on the fern pods and sprinkled on the ground. Firepaw sniffed the air. Greenleaf was drawing to a close, and soon it would start to feel colder. He laid down and rolled in the earth beside the tree stump, stretching his legs and tipping his head back to rub it on the cool ground. Then he flipped over onto his side and looked across the clearing to see if Yellowfang was awake yet. She had been given a resting place on the other side of the fallen tree where the elders gathered to eat. Her nest lay tucked against its mossy trunk, out of hearing of the elders, but in full view of the warrior's den across the clearing. Firepaw could just see a mound of pale gray fur rising and falling in time with a gentle rumble of sleep. Graypaw trotted out of the den behind him, followed by Sandpaw and Dustpaw. Ravenpaw appeared last, with a nervous glance around the clearing before he emerged fully into the opening. "Another day with that mangy old fleabag, eh, Firepaw?" mewed Dustpaw. "I bet you wish you were out training with us." Firepaw sat up and shook the dust from his fur. He wasn't going to let himself get annoyed by Dustpaw's taunts. "Don't worry, Firepaw," murmured Graypaw. "Booster will have you back in training before long." "Perhaps she thinks a kitty pet is better off staying in camp, tending to the sick," mewed Sandpaw rudely, tossing her sleek ginger head and throwing him a scornful look. Firepaw decided to ignore her barbed comment. "What's White Storm teaching you today, Sandpaw?" he mewed. "We're doing battle training today. He's going to teach me how to a real warrior fights," Sandpaw replied proudly. "Lionheart's taking me to the Great Sycamore," mewed Graypaw, "to practice my climbing. I'd best go. He'll be waiting." "I'll come with you to the top of the ravine," mewed Firepaw. "I have to catch breakfast for Yellowfang." "Coming, Ravenpaw? Tigerpaw must have something planned for you." Ravenpaw sighed and nodded, then followed Graypaw and Firepaw as they trotted out of the camp. Even though his injury was completely healed, he still seemed to have little enthusiasm for warrior training.